Now we've got a pretty strong sun here, so I'm going to just mist the concrete down as we go in between each stage here so it doesn't fire off too fast, and just finish cleaning off my tools. With the jitterbug tamper, you want to just get right on into the concrete and step in here. You step out away from the foundation edge because that's where you've got a lot of concrete and you'll likely sink pretty quickly. Now I'm just lightly tapping the surface with this and bringing up what I call the cream and overlapping it and working it into the corners. This is also, look at your footprints. You know when you've got the cream up to the top when your footprints have filled back in nicely. So the game of concrete is definitely pretty much a race against the clock. So you want to move as quickly as you can so that things don't set up too fast on you. Because once they're set up, there's not much you can do about it. So using the bowl float, I'm using pretty even pressure all the way across. And this takes a little bit to get used to of the angle that you want to push that float at. But you're just working it back and forth, leveling out any high spots and low spots. You can see in here, we've got some low areas. So right now I'm just going to go back and forth and let them fill themselves in as I pull. I'm also, at this point, I'm going in the same direction that I did the tamping so that the width of my bowl float can span across the lines that were made by the edges of the tamper, because sometimes they create channels. So this way it stops it from becoming a channel. And then I'll turn, and once I get most of the way across here, turn and come at it perpendicular to this direction to even out any lumps that are going the other way. So now moving in the opposite direction from where I was just troweling, I come back across the same area. Now that area is low. So what I had done when we were screeding, when we got to the end of the foundation, we had too much concrete. I made a pile of it so that it's still clean, and I can get this in here and fill this hole. I'll give it, that's probably enough to get both of those. And then I'll tamp this down again. Now I waited until this point because I can reach it from the edge. If this is a bigger slab and you can't reach a spot that you suspect is going to be low, you might want to fill it and tamp it before you start floating it all the way out. Leave yourself a way to walk in there without damaging work that you just did. So I'm still low in that spot, so I'll work a little more mud into there. This is a great way to get a very even finished slab. Now this slab is going to be a finished interior slab, so this is the finished floor in the building we're working on. So we're putting a lot of extra attention into filling these little surface imperfections. If you're doing a slab that's going to be underneath carpeting or floor, or it's going to be a garage, you can probably work with this a little bit less on the perfectionist side and not worry about surface imperfections too much. So now I'm just continuing around the surface of the slab and working the cream a little bit. I want to be careful not to overwork it, but at the same time, I want to be sure my level is as smooth as I can make it. So here around the edges, I'm using my magnesium float, and I'm coming off of the form boards as my screed to get my general elevation, and then I can just use it to clean up like this. Now it's really good to get underneath these anchor bolt anchors or any other obstacles that you have in the way, because your plate needs to sit down on top of these, and if you've got a bunch of concrete popping up here, it's going to make it really difficult to get your plate to sit down flat. So a little attention around those edges is a good idea. And this is starting to set up pretty well now. So when I've got some spots where I need a little extra mud, I can put quite a bit of pressure here. Make sure I get everything in place. And right here we've got a small hole in our concrete, and we're already pretty set up. So again, I'm going back to my pile of clean concrete that I left over. I'm going to tamp this in here, just sort of connect it, mix it up with the concrete underneath it. I don't want it to just be a surface patch, because then it won't adhere and bond well. So now that I got it in there, I can really jam it up, put some pressure on it. And just with this float, I can actually bring a lot of cream to the top. I don't have to retamp this whole thing out. This is just a good way to fill in low spots. Again, the more even you can get the perimeter especially, and if you're doing a finished slab, the interior as well. But the more even you get this, the easier it's going to be to work your frame up from here. Now I'm just going down the sides, basically vibrating the concrete down so I don't get a honeycomb look, which is, basically if you flatten that down, you can see the gravels and some cavities where the gravel was, and voids and bumps, and it's just an ugly finish. So here, by just vibrating it out like this, the concrete will settle down and smooth out enough to where we get a nice clean finish when we remove the form boards. The final step is to use a steel trowel. Now it's important to know exactly when the slab is ready for you to get on it in terms of troweling it out. If you get on too early, it'll squish all over the place. If you come too late, then you can miss it and it'll be too hard to work. So you just want to keep an eye on it. It's going to vary on your weather, if you're in direct sun, if you're in shade, what the temperature is, the moisture content of the air, all those things have an effect. So you just want to keep track of it. And when you get it to where it's really hard, you can put a lot of pressure on it and it just barely cleans up the surface, you're ready to get on. Now I start in the middle and work my way back out so I can do the final finish from solid ground. In order to get out to the middle, I'm using knee boards. It's called an easy kneeler. You can use just a regular piece of plywood with a handle screwed on from the underside so you can move it around. The idea is to set these out here far enough that you can reach out to the middle, and because they're wider, they're not really taking the weight of your body on your knees. You're taking it spread out over the larger surface area so it doesn't leave a dent. Now when you get out to finish it, just using a regular steel trowel, you want to keep an angle on it and push down on the back side. So whichever direction you're moving, you're pushing down on the back side of the trowel. You just want to go back and forth and start out with some harder strokes where you're really putting some muscle into it, and that'll help you smooth out any irregularities. And then as you work it in more and more, you can become more and more gentle on the actual trowel itself, and you'll find that the cream will start to work back in to the slab nicely. You want to overlap from where you last were and leave space to overlap in the other direction. Now depending on how smooth you want your finish, that's going to depend on the number of times you go over this. Do the whole slab and then come back and do the slab again. You can really polish it out. And then to move back, I just step onto my rear knee board here, move this one behind me. I can use my trowel to lean on. And I got my feet on there. It keeps my feet. Otherwise, if I just use one, I have a tendency to want to put my feet down, and I can't reach out as far onto the slab because I've only got one to work with. This takes a little practice to get the right angle and the right touch so you're not gouging holes and you're not leaving marks that look worse than when you started. So don't get discouraged. I need one more board here. Now, you don't have to finish a concrete floor this way. This is going for a pretty nice shine. There are much simpler ways of doing it. You can use just a broom and drag a broom across it. They actually make broom extensions for the same extension pole I was doing with the bull float. You can get longer extension poles and put them together and brush this entire thing in one direction. There's lots of different finishes you can do. This is going for more of a polished look, and we're going to come back and do some acid stain on this, so we want it to be a nice finished floor. Now this process takes quite a while, so you definitely want to be prepared to spend some time with your slab. It's not just the pour that takes time, the actual finishing can take a long time, and there's a lot of time sometimes in between it, where if it's taking a long time to cure, to set up where you can actually get to this point if it's in the shade and it's cool and moist outside. So definitely plan enough time for that. After your concrete is finished, you need to let it cure properly. In order to do that, you want to keep it wet for at least the first 7 days. A proper curing takes about 21 days, and the first 7 are the most crucial. In that time, you achieve most of your strength, and if you do not cure it properly in this time, you'll get cracking in the surface of the slab and other structural defects. The best way to do this is to keep water on top of the slab at all times. If you can find a way to build up and hold a pond of water on top of the concrete, that's fantastic. Concrete will cure properly underneath water as long as it is placed properly in the first place. Another way to do it is to lay burlap or straw down and get that wet. That will hold additional moisture. Then you can lay plastic on top of that, which will keep the moisture in. Anytime you can shade the slab from direct sun is a good opportunity as well. If the temperature is going to drop below 40 degrees, you need to do some sort of thermal insulation. Again, the use of straw with plastic on top is a good way to achieve this. If you're going to be doing more than one slab and you anticipate having temperatures below 40 degrees more than once, then you might want to invest in thermal blankets. These are actually designed specifically to keep the heat in as the concrete cures. In terms of keeping the heat in, the concrete will produce its own heat as it's curing through the chemical process of hydration.